All right, we're live. Last weekend I did a video. I did YouTube live, and I did a wheat twist. And I was having some technical difficulties, and Alexis got on and spent some time. We went over. I had some difficulties with the OBS and YouTube, so the two of us were on. Pretty much that was my only viewer, so I decided to do the same thing again. And Alexis went ahead and did this one after I did it on a live stream too. So, but I figured nobody's seen it yet. I'll do it again. So I took a chunk of 1/4-inch bar, 28 inches long. And you can see I put a pretty good notch in it. Got 7 inches, 14 inches, and 21 inches. What's up, Tabaka? We're going to go ahead and we're going to do it again because, well, like I said, nobody's seen it yet. I'm going to put it in there, heat it up. And I'm giving this thing another try. I'm having too many problems getting my DSLR to work with this, with the OBS. So I'm just using the webcam. We're going to take a heat up on it, right where we had our mark. We're going to go ahead and just bend it around. Hold it back on top of itself. You see? I'll pull that end down so that I can grab it. Do the same thing on the other end of the bar. So I'm just goofing around. I had the night off from work, which is pretty rare for me to have a day off during the week. Yeah, if I raise that up, I can't see the end. All right, there's good, I guess. And Dabaka, I didn't schedule it or tell anybody, so you know, who knows? I probably won't even have any viewers. So you can see I bent the other one over too. I'm going to heat that section up. We'll come over, clamp it in the vise, and we'll twist 1/2 of that. Last time I did 3 turns, I didn't like the way it came out. We're going to put 4 turns in this thing. Hopefully someday, it'll, you know, if I start doing them and I start scheduling them, there'll be people in the chat to chat with each other and, you know, make it a little more interesting. Go ahead. Snap it to voice. Grab it. Gonna go counterclockwise. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it deforms and twists a lot of times and gets all out of shape, I like to just clamp it in the vise to straighten it. That way I'm not hammering on it, hitting it with the hammer. If you do see me hit, I'm only hitting out here past the vise. You can see 1/2 is twisted. I'm gonna cool that down. And I could be using my tongs, instead of cooling it, but it's not that big a deal. Huh, a master. Yeah, okay. If you guys only knew. And I don't do a whole lot of real technical forging and stuff. A lot of times it's just a small amount of forging and more fabrication and stuff than actual blacksmith forging type stuff. Like even with my candelabra, I mean, I made a ton of scrolls, but it was the same thing, just repeating. Half, 2, half, 3, half. There's 4. Once again, clamp it in the vise. That way I'm not hammering on the edges and stuff. Straighten it out. Now you can see you got both twists in opposite directions, and I'll heat it up here in the middle, fold it in half. Might as well go ahead, grab out a couple pairs of tongs. And I'm just playing around. Ultimately, I want to figure out how to use OBS and get 2 cameras set up. One like this one, a main camera, and another one that's zoomed right in on the anvil. I'm going to fold it over and try to get close. Now, I'm also keeping it pulled back so that anywhere where the twists are off the anvil so that I don't damage them. So you can see, if I turn my anvil, you see most of it's off. I'm going to hook it in there. We're just going to tweak these a little bit and get them in the right plane. Drop forged. Now the 2 ends with the loops, not the open ends, but the 2 ends with the loops, I'll turn around and line them up, get them pressed together, and get them ready to start welding. Yeah, you guys can drink. I don't have anything to drink down here, but as far as drinking alcohol, I quit drinking years ago. Now you can see I brought the two ends together so that I can go ahead and just forge weld them. I'll put them in. Take it up to heat. My fire is a little dirty. A lot of times I'll forge weld without using any flux, but right now my fire is a little dirty, so I'm going to go ahead and use some flux. I've got probably, I don't know, 5, 6 different brands of flux, and I'm just going to use borax. But I've got Swan Magic Weld, anti-borax, I don't know. Let's see. Magic Weld, Easy Weld, Sure Weld, Stable Weld. You know, I've got all these different fluxes. Let me get some on there before I burn it up. Just a little scoop. You don't need a ton of weld or flux. Sorry I'm ignoring you, but I'm trying to watch the heat. I don't want to burn it up. Wait for it to come up just at right top. Sometimes I'll actually cut my hair off just before it gets the welding temp. Flip it in, straighten it back out. But I welded that end together. It's got a little notch in there where I didn't line them up perfect, but that's all right because that's where I would put a scarf in there anyway when I add the handle. We'll flip her around, get her back in the fire in the other direction. Now this end's the fun end because you got loose ends that are hanging out, flopping around, but you got to get them welded in. So get everything tucked in tight. So they're all tucked in now, tight together. Back in the fire, bring it up to temp. I can throw just a little bit of flux on it. My flux spoon has a really long handle because I like to just add the flux while it's in the fire. It produces the flux when it hits the air, so if you're pulling it out, you're going to make, or produces a scale, sorry. If you pull it out, you're making more scale just to add the flux, to get rid of the scale. So it's counterproductive. I can see cold spots in my fire, so. So I'm just going to give it a couple taps, go right back in. Pile some more coal on. I got it over here on the other screen, so it's easier to read up there. Yeah, I got a nice forge. I got like went on Facebook Marketplace one day and somebody had like 300 bricks for free, and I went and picked them up. Decided I was gonna build myself a forge out of them. So we're gonna start tapering it down. I'm not gonna taper too much all at once because I want to keep my heat up. And you'll have to forgive me, guys, because I'm just looking into the fire at welding temperature, and I can't even see my chat right now. Tell my eyes get used to the dim a little bit. And we're just drawing out where that pieces came together. And this is where you'll know if your weld took or not. When you're drawing this out, if it didn't weld, they'll pull right back apart. So we're good, pretty good. I'm gonna, Alexis did hers this way. I'm gonna do mine like that. So I'm gonna have to make mine longer. Yeah, I built this forge, and originally I got a small shop. This is 12 foot by 24 foot outside dimensions. So when I originally put this in, I actually threw down a couple traffic cones. And I was looking to see with my bench over there, and I'd walk around imagining the forge was going to be where them traffic cones were. And I was like, oh, I'm going to keep bumping into it all the time. And that's why I put the curved front on it. And that was just because of the space limitations. If I didn't have the space limitations, I wouldn't have wasted my time making that curved front. Cutting all them bricks in half and let me go grab a wooden mallet. I'm gonna straighten up and tighten up a little bit. So I'll use the mallet. You can see I'm stretching that out. It's getting out there. I'm not gonna hurry because if you hurry, it's just gonna look crappy when I get done. Then Alexis did use a flatter at the end, only because she didn't have a power hammer, and she didn't have flat dies in the treadle hammer. So, but at the end, I like to flatten these out, gives them a nice look. And I'll just do it in my power hammer, and it'll take like 2 hits to be done. Now I'll go back and round up that section. Okay, I'm going to clamp this in my vise and give it a tap over because it's offset. take my wooden hammer. Now you can see, I got my points drawn out. I got it kind of rounded up halfway decent. I haven't done too many of these. I did one, like I said, last weekend. That was probably the first one I've done in about 2 years. And sometimes I just don't get out here and forge very much, so I'll go ahead and I'll put a little tiny finial on the end and then wrap my scroll around to make a hook to hang it with. Get my heat back just a little bit farther. Put my little scroll on the end. When I jammed it in, it went all the way through, and that point hit and started forming the point before I even brought it out. So it was bent in the wrong direction, and I had to correct it. See, I'm bending that hook around. I'm going to take another heat, try to close it up a little bit more, make it look a little better. Problem is, if you work it too long, then it starts to stretch out the twists up towards the end where I'm working. And it's already starting to happen, so I'm not going to work too much longer because I'll just keep deforming it. So now you can see you got your handle and the twist. I like to flatten mine out. So I'll take a heat on it and just walk over there and give it a quick flattening. And then I'll take a break and be able to reach the chat. Yeah, I've got a modified tire hammer. My tire is actually in the back. And then I've got a shaft that runs to the front and an offset. And mine runs a leaf spring like an old DuPont instead of the toggle linkage and the coil spring. My hammer's a little bit different. It was just made out of some scrap that I had and whatever I had laying around. I think I put like $200 into building it. That's it. All right, as you guys can see, there's the handle. Like I said, if you work it too much up here for too long, it starts to untwist up in here, which this one started doing. So this one is just going to go in the scrap bin. I mean, usually when I make them, they come out a little better. Let's see what we got for comments. Oh, if I made Roy a pluck spoon, I would make him a nice decorative one. The one I got here is just pretty boring. I mean, it's a spoon, and the handle's just a twist with a loop as it hangs. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I moved my handle off to the side here, all the way around. The front of my forge is hooks. That's where all my fire tools and whatnot hang. And that goes all the way around. I've got different tools all the way around the front. Doesn't fall apart like Yamaha's. Yeah, that actually it beats metal pretty good. Right now it's got flat dies in it. Let me grab a piece of this is a piece of 3/4 inch square bar. Like I said, the bottom anvil part, the place where I work, they were taking out a kiln, and the kiln door had a big counterweight. The counterweight was made out of 2-inch thick by 6-inch wide, solid, about 9-foot long steel bars stacked up. So when they took out the kiln, I asked them if I could buy the counterweight. I bought it for scrap steel price. Ended up paying like $200 for it. So I welded together, the bottom of it is a 12 by 12 inch solid square that's 28 or so inches tall. Then my dies bolt on and stuff, but then the back bars that goes up to the top is 2 by 2, two of them. And the 1-inch plate that I made to house the top end, that was part of the counterweight too, because they used 2-inch ones, and then they used a 1-inch one, and they used like some 3/8 strips until they got that to match the weight of the door, so that it was almost perfectly balanced. But so yeah, I will get this going, and with that hammer on 3/4 inch, I'm going to taper this down, the end of this bar down, and you'll see that most of the time I'm feathering it to try to keep it from just absolutely mushing the point. Sir Crawford. Scrap. But yeah, I'll throw on a glove because it cushions a little bit. Get the end of the bar hot, and I'll go over there. But it doesn't hit as fast as some of the other ones. But the tough on it is, with the die, it's about 100 pounds. And unfortunately, there's no way for me to like stand out of the way because I don't like being on the side. That way, if the spring breaks, it doesn't catch me in my face. I've had, I think 8 years ago, I built it. I had one spring break. It lasted 5 or 6 years before the spring broke. And when it broke, it was very uneventful. It just broke. Both taps were still bolted to the machine. Nothing went flying. Nothing, you know. Everybody always makes these statements like, oh, that spring's going to break and parts are going to go flying out and it's going to shatter like a piece of glass. And that just doesn't happen. Let me take a little more heat, and then I'll do a little demonstration of the hammer, and we'll see how much I can draw out that 3/4 inch bar in one heat. You can see 3/4 inch bar, one heat. Flat dies aren't the greatest for drawing a taper because the corner of the die, you know, gives you that notchy look when you try to draw tapers. But it works pretty good for what I spent on it. Like I said, I probably spent out of pocket maybe about $200 building it. By the time I bought the bearings, I bought the spring, and the motor, and that was it. And the bearings were the cheapest Chinese bearings I could find. Safety third. Oh. Yeah, the base on that. All right, let me see if I can't. Oh, I can't get the camera off that stand. So I can't move it to show you. I was going to pull the camera off, but maybe I'll do a Facebook Live later and take my phone and show you the camera so that I can come over here and actually show it. I actually did a video not too long ago where I did. It was this end of the bar that was already tapered here that you can see. I did a video and I was able to taper about maybe 2.5 inches by hand in one heat, and then I drew out the rest of this in the second heat. That taper that's probably about 10 inches long there. So what I did, because I started it with hand and I went down to a pretty good point, I was able to get that end down to a much better point than this end. But comes in handy. I wouldn't be surprised if you weren't. High Desert. I just started doing YouTube, and I don't plan on doing a whole lot of YouTube videos. I do plan on doing a couple and a few here and there, and it'll probably be announced, sometime soon, and I'll set up and start scheduling them ahead of time. Right now, I'm pretty much just seeing what the camera will do, how the video is going to look, how the sound is when I'm walking around. I mean, I got a couple of them the clip-on mics, but I'm not using them tonight because they just came in and they're charging. Yeah, I did one where I took a 3/4 inch bar like that, and I did a sign holder, and it had a scroll on it, just a scroll, nothing fancy. But I had started so at the center of the scroll, I tapered it from there all the way to both ends, and I had no flat spot in it. And it ended up being like, I don't know, 8-9 feet long, the taper, and then made the scrolls. But once in a while, I like playing with the heavy stuff, but before I made Power Hammer, you would never find me even thinking about working on 3/4 inch stock. That made a big difference. And then for the first couple of years I had it, I didn't have anything but flat dies in it. So I used it more in the first couple of years just for resizing stuff than I did actually, trying to draw tapers or anything like that on it. Because I got little dies and stuff, kiss blocks that I put on it. Like I could take this block, it's hard to see, but I take this block and clamp it on, and that'll give me 1/4 inch block that way, 3/8 that way, a 1/2 inch block. I can put them on and I just put a clamp on it on the side of the die, and then it comes down, hits the block, and stops. It allows me to make everything right to the sizes. But like I said, for the first couple of years, I didn't have any tooling or anything for it. And I really wasn't even using it close to its potential. I really don't even know why I'm making this scroll right now, but I'm not going to use it for anything. 3 unboxing videos. Well, I don't have any unboxing videos. See, back before the hammer, doing that by hand on 3/4 inch bar would have been, you know, at least an hour long job, maybe 2. Set that up to safely cool. And yeah, guys, this is my shop. It's small, 12 by 24. My brick forge actually takes up a huge amount of it, which, to be honest with you, if you guys, the brick forge looks cool, but I got a table sitting outside that's about a 3 foot by 4 foot table with a fire pot in it that I can do everything in there that I can do in this brick forge. This just, ever since I put it in, I just enjoy working at it. And then, because my shop is heated and air conditioned, because it's so small, it's easy to heat and air condition. That'll close down and keeps all my heat from going out through the chimney or my cold air in the summer. Roy would probably throw up a little in his mouth if he saw that scroll. The very tip of it had a weird crook in it. It wasn't very smooth. The taper wasn't, you know, good. Doing a few more later. Yeah, and like I never wanted to do this for a living. I knew when I started years ago that I wanted to do it as a hobby. And I always told myself, I've got one 9 to 5 I already hate. I don't need another one. So it's always been a hobby. I've been doing it for a while, you know, not horrible. And here's a couple leaves I made. You know, they're not the greatest, but they're not the worst by far. If anybody wants to see, I can make a leaf real quick. I'm not really doing anything else. So I'll take this bar. I already got a leaf on that end because I was goofing around. Like I said, normally this time of night I'm at work. I don't know what time is it? Oh, 5:30. Is Bar Run Forge coming on soon? Troy and Eli, do they start around 6? I might shut down and go watch them. And my forge, in underneath where nobody can see it, under the forge, there's a just the exhaust blower out of a clothes dryer. Is what I'm using for my fan. Then you'll see me reach down. I got a bar here that I slide in or out that controls my air gate. And then there's a clinker breaker right next to it. High Desert, where are you? Oh, it's 2:30 where you are, so it's an hour away. Okay, I'm in New York, so it's 5:30 for me. I think they come on around 6:30. And the last thing I want to do, I don't want to compete with Troy and Eli. I like those guys. They're good guys. I actually don't want to compete with anybody. But I don't know how new everybody is or how long everybody's been blacksmithing, so. Yeah, the candle holder though, to be honest with you, if you break it down and you look, all it is a whole lot of scrolls. And there's no complicated forging at all in that. It was just, the way I took a whole bunch of scrolls and put them together. But what I noticed is that if you look at a lot of like Yellen pieces, when you look at Yellen pieces, a lot of times they're just the same thing. The same, they'll make a scroll or something, and then it's just that scroll repeated over and over and over and over, or 2 or 3 different styles repeated over and over and over, and it gives it this look of it's real elaborate. And that's what I went with my candelabra. And I pretty much made the candelabra. I had no plans for the candelabra. I made that specifically just because I wanted to enter something into the gallery at Quad State. I'd gone for like 3 years. I seen the stuff everybody else was putting in, and I wanted to put something in. So, but has everybody here made leaves? So we're going to put a short taper on the end. If you notice, I'm right out on the edge of my anvil. Way over here. So that when I hit, I can bring that leaf, that tip right to the end, and I can bring it down to a really sharp point. Then I'll go back in the fire because I was talking too much. Okay. All right. Sporadically, Indiana. Yeah, no, like I said, I just did it as a hobby. I started a long time ago, but there'll be some times when I might come out and spend 1 day out of here a month. So we draw down our stem. Once again, square, octagon, round. I drew it down, then I went in and knocked off all the corners and started to round it up because I still had heat. This isn't very big, it's 3/8 square bar. Gonna knock those sharp corners off. Now you can see, and I only worked 2 sides because when I set it down on the anvil to squish it, that the stem is going to be against the anvil. And I'll pull it out and I'll stand it up on the diamond and I'll squish it a little bit with my regular hammer, but then I'll quickly toss that out to the side and grab a cross peen and start spreading it because I like to make mine pretty wide. And that's all you do when you're spreading it with the flat. And then I'll go right over grab my cross peen and start stretching them edges right out. You can see it's starting to get a little wider. And I usually like, years ago, I would have been happy with that and I'd have stopped right there and started putting my veins and stuff in. But as I got better eventually, I started spreading them a little lot wider. I like the look of them if I go a little bit wider. So I'll start with like a 3/8 bar. You usually spread it until it's about 1.5 inches wide. You don't need a rounded hammer. My philosophy is this. I see a lot of guys that got 100 hammers and they're using the same one. They're using that rounded hammer. And I'm thinking to myself, that's like going out and changing your engine in your car with a crescent wrench when you got a whole socket set sitting there. You can see that's starting to spread out. See the thickness of the bar and how wide that leaf is. I'm going to take a heat and I'm just going to touch up them sides and even them out a little bit. But you don't need a rounded hammer. You can use a regular hammer. Or years ago, a guy had a square face on his hammer like this, and he said that he always thought of his hammer as 4 fullers and a flatter because he'd tip it this way, or that way, or that way, or flatten it. And he would just dig the corner in and do the same thing. So, all right, let me get a hold down. Maybe I'll do a video on making one of them hold downs one of these days. I don't know. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take a fuller, and a fuller is just like a chisel, but it's not sharp. It's rounded. I want to leave a line in it, but I don't want to go through it. All right, so now you can see I put that line in the center of it. Some guys, they'll take their chisel and they'll go, like where the line is, they'll go out, 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 and just keep using their chisel or fuller for doing them lines. All I do is I grab a cross peen hammer that's got a pretty sharp radius on the back, and I just drive that in to form them lines. And I got overzealous on this one and actually put a hole right through it when I fullered it. It's like the old saying too, if you're going to make a mistake, it's going to be when everybody's watching. You can see now that leaf has some texture. I folded it up a little bit so it's 3D. You can see maybe the hole in it where I fullered too deep. That's how you do a leaf. Pretty simple. I've done things where I did vines, where I just did, once again, I took one simple element, I made leaves. I just kept making leaves, and one after another, after another, after another, and then assembled them and made a vine. And everybody's like, one leaf isn't impressive, but you put 50 of them together, and everybody's like, jaws drop. And they don't stop to think that the technical level is like the same for one leaf or 50 leaves. And when you're not, talking and stopping and showing people stuff, and you're just making them leaves to make a vine, it goes a lot faster. And I've got a 12-inch pipe up there on the chimney. So I can turn around and just pile that hole right on. And all that smoke's still going out that chimney. What do you got? Your pitch hole is 5/8. I'm not sure. Let me. Okay, my pitch hole is in between 9/16 and 5/8. So, and the shank on my hole downs is probably about 1/2 inch. The only time I've had a problem is on the Harbor Freight one, where that hole isn't out here in the tail where it's thin. It's in where it's thicker. Then hold downs don't work well because they don't jam in at an angle because it's too long. The hole's too deep. But yeah, the shaft on mine is like 1/2 inch. I've got, I don't know. I just grab a piece of coil spring and, make different ones, different sizes. That's a bigger one that reaches way out. Some of them I'll take and upset and form the corner on. And then other ones I'll just bend it over. I won't worry about upsetting it. It's whatever I feel like making that day. The 66, like one of them Axios or Akaios or whatever they're called, has a big 3/4 inch round hole. Okay. Yeah, well, is it the hole, the diameter of the hole isn't the big deal. It's when, let's see, this doil has like a 3/4 inch hole, but it's way up here where it's like that thick. So it's like almost 2.5 inches thick. If that thickness is really, that hole is really deep and thick, they don't tip and lock in like they're supposed to. But actually that one still does, and it's only half an inch. I mean, if I, now it bounced that time. But that's locked in, and now I can almost pick the anvil up. But if this was a little bigger around, it would probably work. But maybe not, because it doesn't tip in the hole and lock itself in. And if you make it with a bigger diameter, then it's just going to stay in the hole straighter. It's not going to tip. It's just, if I had my way, I'd have a hole, a Pritchell hole farther out towards the tail where it's thinner, and then that hold down would work just fine. But I don't know. I don't even know why I bought this anvil. I mean, I bought it specifically because I just wanted that tapered tail, because this doesn't have it. And then I haven't even mounted it yet, so I've had it for a year or more since it first came out. And I had a 300-pound Fisher, or 300-pound Trenton. This is a Trenton, but it's only 100 pounds. I had a 300-pounder, but I didn't care for it. It was too hard to move. It was too hard to work around. In my shop, it didn't fit well. And I ended up just selling it. So I'm going to go ahead and do another leaf, but I'm going to do it like in real time. I'm not going to stop and talk and explain every step. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know which way you'd have to make the curve, because it counts on digging in at the top and then the bottom. That's what locks it in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do one in real time. I'm not going to stop and talk and show you the steps. Because I plan on making a picture frame that's got a bunch of leaves. That's why I got a couple of bars. I've got a couple on them. So I could use another one. So now I'm almost ready to, well, I'm ready basically to grab my crossbeam. So you see, what I took 3 or 4 heats to do explaining, and I just did in one. I prefer the 3/8 square over 3/8 round because there's more material there, and I just like that size for making leaves. It gives me just enough material to spread it more. And spread out. That. So yeah, I mean, I know that Jack for a while
Jack Pines used to do a leaf as a warm-up at the beginning of every one of his shows. I really should do that. The more you do, the better you're going to get at them. Lines up center. Back in. Take that out. Grab my other cross peen. It's hard to see. There's the leaf, start to finish. What was that? 4 heats? 4 heats, I think. And I like making leaves. I enjoy them. A lot of times I'll do demonstrations. I'll make a leaf, and then I'll come down, and I'll start with this 3/8 square, and I'll cut it off, 7 or 8 inches long past that leaf, and I'll draw a taper and make a hook on this end, and then round the whole thing up so that when I get done, I'll start with this square bar, and when I get done, none of it will be square. Cool. So if anybody has any questions, I'll answer some questions real quick. If not, then I will probably shut down and get ready for, because I can actually catch Troy and Eli's show tonight. Normally I'm working. But yeah, you don't have to worry about having a rounding hammer, and you don't have to worry about having, all the special tools. When I started out, my first few hammers were just like Harbor Freight hammers, or garage sale hammers. I mean, now I got a rack, probably got about 50 hammers in there, but I like the Swedish cross peens. My quote unquote daily driver, the one that I like the most, is probably this one. It's a 2.5 pound Nathan Robertson straight peen, and I like that style. He no longer makes this particular style, and the newer ones look more like just a regular hammer, and I don't like them. If I could find that style in a cross peen, I would buy it. This is the one I use the most. It's a 2.5 pounder, but I use that's about 4.5, and that's a small ball peen. And I used to have a smaller one than this, and then I went to make an impression one day, and I put it under my power hammer and hit the pedal too aggressively, and it shattered the head. So now I'm looking for a really, really small ball peen, but generally 2.5 pounds is what I like. This one will come in handy. Sometimes I'll want to, pull something out. Say I want to pull a bar out and put a good, big, heavy notch in it. And I don't want it to slide around. I want a real precise notch. What I'll do is I'll grab that big hammer out. And once in a while, if I'm driving a hammer, I drift or something through, I'll grab the big one. I don't use it very often. Or I've got this one here as well. But I made these years ago, and they're just made out of, they were pieces of forklift tine, and I upset them, because they'd start off like 1.5 inches thick, 4 inches wide. And then I just cut a couple pieces and upset it until I got the size I wanted and made the hammers. I'm going to use the lighter one because I haven't used that big one in a while. You know what? I'll use the big one. But if I'm going to put a good heavy notch in and I don't want it to move around a lot, I can just stand it up, bam. 1 or 2 hits with this, and I've got that notch established, and it's not moving around anywhere. I mean, it's not too great if you want to try drawing a taper or something. It will, but I can almost draw that taper faster with a 2.5, and it doesn't wear me out as much as the big one. But you'll see a lot of the guys, there's a lot of the guys in the Brazil camp, I guess you call it, that are huge fans of grabbing these monster 4, 5, 6 pound hammers. But the one thing you see on almost all of them is they're grabbing them way up next to the head. And I asked one of the other guys, this guy in my local club, I said, well, how come you don't, the guy that you blacksmith with every Monday, and you guys blacksmith together, how come you don't use a big hammer like he does and use that same rounded hammer and stuff? And he says, he described it as, I don't like punching my work, because that's what they're doing. Choking way up on that hammer and punching it and letting the hammer head do the work, the weight of the hammer. So, but like I said, I can do a project and for me to grab 3, 4 different hammers just to do a simple project is normal. If I've got 3 different hammers and each one does a different thing, I'm not going to just take that one and keep tipping it and moving it around. I'm just going to grab the other hammer. If I want to spread it sideways, I'll use a cross piece. Start putting some of this stuff up. All right. Any other questions, comments, whatever? There you go. I'm thinking of cutting off a chunk of 1 1/4 hexagon rough bar. If you were to put a sleeve down in that hole, it probably wouldn't even have to be hardened, to tell you the truth. I mean, other than the top maybe 1/4 of an inch of this hole, the rest of it's not hardened. And that would save you having to anneal it so that you can drill it and then reheat treat it afterwards. I actually like it better when there's a few guys in the chat, because then you guys can have a conversation while I'm doing my thing and I ain't got to keep checking it as often. 1.75 pound cross. Okay, I've tried 3-pounders and had trouble with hammer control. Yeah, I used to use a 3-pounder when I first started out, almost exclusively, and then I went to the big hammers. Those 2 big ones I used a lot, and then I went back down to that 2.5 pounder. That 2.5 feels good. I like it. The 4-pounder or 4.5 pounder is just a little too heavy. I mean, it's good when I need, you know, a good solid hit, but if you're hitting multiple times rapidly, it's too much. There's guys out there that can swing it, but I hate to be them and their shoulders in a few years. But maybe some other night I will, I'll take my camera and, you know, do like a shop tour, go around, show some of the stuff that I use. Nothing's really fancy. I mean, my belt grinder's homemade, 2x72 belt grinder. Got my vise over here, my anvil here. Other vise, I just picked it up. I don't know what the heck to do with it. It's a big, heavy one. I don't want to deal with it. It's too heavy to move around like that one is. So I'll probably end up passing that on to somebody else. You talk to some of the people that do know me will know that up here in New York, I get good deals on stuff that everybody else is, you know, says, you know, oh, down around me, there are hundreds and hundreds of dollars and stuff. Like this light voice right here is a beast. And I paid $50 for it. You know, just before Quad State, Shane Lalonde said he was looking for one. Told Kevin Stokes, Trail Dust, he told Trail Dust, keep an eye out for a good post vise at Quad State. And I told him, I said, I sent him pictures of one that I bought. I said, if you give me what I paid for it, you can have it. You know, and he was skeptical, and I said, I paid $25. He said, I'll take it. So, you know, if I find a deal, a great deal, lots of times I won't even mark it up. I just pass it on to somebody that needs it. I mean, like with Shane and Alexis, because Alexis is from Texas. There's no way you're shipping a post vise, you know. And with Shane, both times, it's like last year and the year before, I brought leg vices to Quad State. And both times they were, you know, ended up going home with somebody I knew who had hung out with at Quad State. So. Make sure you spend all your money on all these special fluxes. And then use the borax, plain old 20 mule team. All right, let's see, what time is it? 6:07. So, all right, guys, I'm going to shut this down. I don't even know if I'm going to save this stream. I might leave it up there. I might just delete it, but I'm going to shut it down so that I can go catch Troy and Eli. So. Christ-centered. Yeah, I tried to get one of them stickers, but I was too late. But like I said earlier when I was doing when I started out, I did for the guys that weren't here in the beginning, we did the twist handle, the wheat twist, and I dug out all them, 4 or 5 different brands, and I think I've got about 6 different brands of flux here, and I ended up using the regular old 20 mil Team Vortex. So a lot of the other ones have like iron shavings in them and stuff, and it just makes them more difficult to clean it afterwards. But all right, guys, I'm out.